Are you looking to learn how to do a basic trimming job for your own backyard barbecue? Well, tell you what, that's what we're going to do right here on Barbecue Boulevard today, so stay tuned. Alright guys, so have you ever been to a barbecue joint and you watch the cutter at the counter like scrape off a ton of fat and rub and all of that and throw it off in the trash, and then they slice it up and they give you this gray looking brisket that has like no smoke flavor to it or very little. There's no rub flavor to it or any of that. It's just a gray piece of meat. So today I'm going to show the beginner to smoking brisket what's the first step in how you achieve a great tasting brisket without a lot of wasted meat or a wasted rub. We're going to do that by trimming. And what we do, guys, is we trim so that everything we pull off the pit is pretty much edible. Well, of course, there's other factors into it, along with the way you manage your fire and you make a proper cooking session, but that's for another video. We'll get into that one later, so stay tuned. But today we're going to talk about how you trim the brisket to get it to where you get minimal waste and maximum flavor. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright guys, so let's talk about the type of knife that I like to use when I trim my briskets. I like to use a 6-inch boning knife, semi-flexible, and the brand of my choice is the Victorinox knives. I like these knives because they're fairly inexpensive, they hold a great edge for a long time, they stay sharp, and they cut very well. Feels very good in the hands, and it helps you to just achieve a good clean cut. So Victorinox knives, I definitely give a thumbs up. Alright guys, so here we've got our brisket. We've got a smaller brisket from our local Costco, as you can see. And I just want to point out the parts of it here. And here's the flat part of this brisket here. And this is going to be your point, okay? This right here is going to be your fat kernel, or the decal that we're going to get cut out. And this side has your fat cap. So those are the parts that you want to identify when you're getting ready to trim this brisket. So we're going to go ahead and get this thing cut out of the package, and we're going to get this trimming job going. And kind of the first things that I want to look at when I'm getting ready to do a brisket is I want to look and kind of get an overall picture of how I want to trim this brisket to start off. Basically develop a game plan. So what I'm looking at here is you can kind of see there's a little bit of fat here that's on the flat here, and you have to decide, do you want to trim this off or not? For backyard barbecue, it really doesn't matter if you take it off or not. If you just want to clean it up, you can. This is definitely not a competition trim that we're going to do, which you would be getting all of this stuff off. But hey, for what we're going to do today and for the purposes of it being a beginner's level trim, we're going to go ahead and get this thing going. And first step we're going to do is we're going to get this hard fat out of here. This stuff right here, this is the kernel. And what I do is I take my knife and I kind of run it right along the edge there of where you have the fat, where it meets that meat, just so I can kind of get my fingers in there, just like that. And then we're going to kind of cut, and be careful not to get your fingers there, but we're just going to cut it off just like this. We're not sawing, guys, we're just going to take one just swipe and keep peeling, and this thing comes right off. So there, we've just pulled this kernel out of here. This fat, guys, is not going to render, so this piece of fat I pretty much chunk because we're not going to do anything with it. The next thing we're going to do here, guys, is you can kind of see we have this little rough browned edge here. We're going to go ahead and get us a good clean edge there, so I'm just going to take the knife, we're going to run it right down the edge there, kind of peel that away, and now you have a good clean edge there. Now what that does is, along with it giving you just a good clean edge, it also allows you the ability to see just how much fat is there. Is that how much fat you want to have on when you finish this cook, or do you want to take that off? So that's what we're looking at right there. Now, another thing that I'll look for is you can kind of see this whole floppy edge right here. This right here is not going to promote for a good even cooking. This part here will cook up way before the rest of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. because we want to get a good uniform size brisket there. Now all of these trimmings, aside from the hard fat kernel that we pulled off, we're just setting to the side. We're going to deal with that later. Now what we're going to do is, again, you can kind of see this rough brown edge here. So I'm just going to lay my knife flat, and I'm just going to kind of take that surface off. And then you can kind of see you have a pointed edge there. Pointed edges are bad for cooking because that's just going to crisp up and burn up. So we want to go ahead and take that off. We're going to round that off. We're going to turn this thing around, and then you can kind of see that you have a good amount of fat here. And we're going to go ahead and take this off. Now on the point, there's plenty of fat that's within the point, so you don't have to worry about losing flavor or the point drying out. So we're going to go ahead and just take that off. And as you peel that away, you can see just how much fat you're dealing with. You can see a good amount of fat there, so we're just going to kind of take that off. And then all of these little straggly edges that are hanging off here, we're just going to kind of clean them up. Now, on this side on the flat, you can see we have a good corner here. We don't really want to leave this corner, or I typically don't want to leave this corner on. I'll actually kind of round this brisket off here, so I'm just going to kind of give it a rounded cut. And cut this off. And I know you're thinking, man, that's a lot of meat you're wasting. Trust me, I'm not wasting this. We're just going to set it to the side. We'll deal with that a little later. We're going to turn this thing around, and same thing, I'm going to clean up this edge here on this side. So another rounded cut. And now we pretty much have achieved the shape that we're going to have for this brisket for the cook. Okay, so what we're going to do at this point is you decide, do you want to cut some of this extra fat off? Silver skin, do you want to leave it on? Do you want to take it off? So for the purposes of just showing for the beginners, I'm going to show you how we're going to take some of this off here. Most people will like to grab and start from the edge, but I don't ever really do that. When I'm looking at this fat, first I'm putting my fingers underneath so I can lift it up, give me a good surface to work with. Take the tip of the knife, stick it in underneath that skin or that fat, and then just go to one side. Now you have something to grab. So you can lift that up, you can lay it back down on the other side, and you can kind of cut. And you're keeping careful to keep your knife angled up. I'm exaggerating here, but angled up and away from the meat. So as you cut, you're not getting too deep into your meat. Just like that. Now, I have seen, and I have done it before, where you can take a 12-inch knife that you use for slicing and do this whole thing at one time if you want. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't typically always do it, but I'll do it sometimes. Demonstrate another cut there. Pull that off, and you can kind of see how you have like good clean meat exposed there versus that silver skin on this side, good clean meat on this side. So again, that's a personal preference. It's up to you if you decide you want to do that, but I did want to show you guys how we do it. And you'll see that I'm constantly rubbing the meat because I'm just giving it a good uniformity look, and it kind of gives you a preview of what that brisket's going to look like when you're calling yourself finished with it. Okay, alright, so now that we've got this flat side and meat side exposed, and we've got it trimmed the way we want, we're going to flip it over to our fat cap side. And again, you can see now that we've got ourselves a good clean edge, you can see just how much fat you have here. and you can decide if you want to trim that down a little bit. And so I'm going to take a little bit off of here, and the way that I do this is I'll just start from one side and I'll just start to slice it here. But that way I can kind of see what I'm doing, and I've got this turned around so you guys can see more than I can. But you just want to angle your knife so that you don't get too deep to the meat, and if it happens, it happens. It's not that big a deal. It's not going to be the end of the world. And I don't feel like I need to take off a lot on this one, and that's not looking too bad there. What I do want to do though is I do want to get another good clean edge here, and then get a little bit more of this fat off here. Alright guys, so let's talk about the trimming. So I trimmed up 2 briskets, and this is the fat that I got off of both of these briskets as we trimmed them up. And as I said, you don't want to throw that stuff away. You can do a couple of things. You can save it up, put it in the freezer till you have enough that you want to make some sausage out of it. You could also make tallow. Tallow is a good rich beef fat that can be used to cook with a lot of different things. You can put it in tortillas and breads and fried vegetables and potatoes in particular. I mean, you can rub it on your brisket, melt it down, inject it in your brisket. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do with tallow. And I'm telling you, one really good thing is actually frying chicken in tallow. I hope you found value in this video. If you did, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also, check me out on Instagram as well as Facebook. I do a lot of posts on Instagram, so connect with me. You'll see a lot more behind the scenes content there than you would see on YouTube. So definitely connect with me on Instagram as well as Facebook. Also, definitely make sure you check out the other videos in my library here on the channel. I'll post a link up there to you know, a couple of playlists that you might want to check out. And hey man, it's been fun. If you enjoyed this, make sure you check out a couple of other videos I've got here. And until the next video, I'm the Dawgfatha. Peace.